created this film to draw attention to the problems of all artists around the world. Many of them have been reduced to suffering and dire plight. We are convinced that art and culture may prove to be exactly the remedy this world needs so badly. No, they will not protect you from the virus, but they will keep your soul immune from getting corrupt, which is a far greater danger. It's been over a year now since the world has found itself confronted by this horrific pandemic. Many good people have died, and we mourn the loss of them every single day. And for billions of others, life has changed forever.
The media stay away from the topic, but people of art and musicians have proven to be one of the most affected social groups. Politicians prefer to call us freelancers, but I guess the invisibles will be a more fitting term. We have always embraced the principles of personal freedom and independence, employing our art to promote the call to scrap borders between the countries. Our life easily fits into a modestly sized suitcase, plus a case for the musical instrument. We love traveling, and we need applause to feel alive. Today, millions of us are hovering near the poverty line. Very few of us get any help from our governments. We cannot perform, nor even make plans because of the restrictions. Many of us are depressed and despaired, and the reason for it lies not the virus alone. I have conducted an independent journalistic investigation, featuring interviews with 15 artists from 15 countries all around the world. Today we will traverse the globe to learn about the life of musicians in different countries, about their thoughts and feelings after their life, the way they knew it, crumbled into a dust.
Italy was the first European country to have faced the pandemic. The country has basically remained under a hard lockdown since the winter of 2020. We received news of it from the acclaimed saxophonist and professor at the Conservatory of Turin, Mr. Emanuele Chisi. He has spent a full year in his mountain house in the Alps.
We faced the problem of COVID as a first European nation involved after China. I have a lot of friends, that works with bars or public exercises, and they are totally destroyed. And some of them that they will not reopen, even when they will be allowed to reopen, they will have no money to do it. And the government is supporting financially with ridiculous amount of money, but ridiculous. We talk about, to receive like 600 euros for 4 months of no work. I lost basically half of my income. Some of my former students that very good, they started to do the professional life of musician, and now they're bringing pizzas. I have colleagues that already they are selling their instruments. So it's sad. It's very tough.
Michaela Steinhauer, a German vocalist, has used very strong and insightful words to describe the situation in her home country. She told us the musicians have found ways to deal with their financial situation, but it's still not quite enough. For many of them have become despondent and very depressed. According to her, Social Security benefits should be reserved for those who are unable to work. By contrast, musicians also need to supplement those lost opportunities so they can continue creating, and also for their self-fulfillment.
We don't know when's the last day of summer, of laughter and warmth, of light and of color.
I think the most difficult thing in Germany is really not even the money, but the psychological problem of not knowing will there ever be a possibility to do music again in the way we used to do it? I know many musicians actually who at the moment in Germany think about giving up on music and changing their jobs. All clubs are shut down, all possibilities to play music live are shut down. Everything is closed. We're under lockdown at the moment. For those musicians who have a job with state-owned orchestras, for instance, for them it's a little bit easier because they are still being paid, even though they don't have work. But even they are very depressed. So I have got friends who told me they didn't touch their instrument for months because they don't know when it will be possible again to do music. We can, of course, apply for Hartz IV, which is social help. But, you know, this is for people who really are not able to work anymore at all. You know, there's no dignity in this. I mean, I have studied, I've worked so hard. All us musicians have worked so hard to get where we are now for a whole life, from childhood on.
A rather grim outlook for the future has been painted by the world-famous British double bass player and composer Yuri Golubev. When describing the situation in the UK, he questions whether the musician's profession will survive the test of the future the way we know it today. Mr. Golubev is convinced that musicians will have to change their occupation or join their ranks of unemployed.
I recall seeing posters in the UK. I cannot remember who exactly was promoting them, but still, it was coming from the government. And you could see this young female ballet dancer with a comment underneath saying something like, she used to be a ballet dancer in her previous life, and now she is, well, whatever she is, I can't remember, whatever she was now. But the main message of the ad was that the people may have to retrain and learn a different trade. Back in the spring, many were totally desperate, and people were trying to get some emergency money from the entities like the Musicians Union, Help Musicians UK, and so forth. And I recall some payouts were something like £200 per person, which is nothing, to be honest. So we may have to face zillions of unemployed people to be put on the universal income, or otherwise some will have to retrain when possible. There is a deep crisis that the system as it was isn't really working, and it hasn't been working properly since years. We all have been painfully trying to keep it afloat somehow. Now, you mentioned the government support, so such entities as the Arts Council England or whatever, but this all isn't really working. This all isn't really working. This all isn't really working. This all isn't really working.
I'm feeling lucky because France supports its artists, and since COVID, we get some unemployment fees from the government this time.
They in Holland, they don't, you know, they don't think that music or culture is a very important part of our lives.
I'm also teaching a little bit. Beside my concert, I'm writing for publishers. So I'm not only getting paid by concerts. I have other hats, as we say. So.
Probably there are some colleagues living alone, or people who are not working but not married to people who are having jobs. They get some money, but I don't get that. And I hear that a lot of people, not a lot of my friends, don't get it either.
So for professional musicians like me, they support us. I mean, the states support us and give us some unemployment fee every month until the venue reopen.
When I was finished my school, Okay, there were radio shows and there were festivals and there were great gigs going on, and you're looking forward to the North Sea Jazz Festival to play there, But now there's nothing.
I still did some concerts, but without audience. And those concerts were filmed and they will be streamed afterwards. So it's not that great, but at least we can still play and, do concerts and people will see our concerts afterwards. But so we find some ways to survive.
Again, I'm 60, so I had a wonderful career already with a lot of great musicians and great music and lots of traveling. And I saw a lot of people and I saw a lot of places. And so, I look back at that with lots of pleasure. Hopefully, some of it comes back so that we can enjoy that a little bit more.
You just heard from the famed French pianist Cedric Henriot and Frits Landesbergen, the legendary vibraphonist and drummer from the Netherlands. I strongly believe that culture and art are the only barriers separating the humans from barbarity and the new dark ages. They compel to give thought to who we are and what we live for. Culture is really vulnerable when money is at stake. It's easily overlooked and dismissed by politicians, at times even sacrificed. They are simply unable to perceive its true value. This is the reason why governments spend scores of times more on defense than culture and education. Politicians don't want us to sing. For them it's enough that we die upon their orders. During the interviews, I encouraged the musicians to estimate their losses due to the pandemic. One of the answers really stirred my heart. Freddie Hendrix, an illustrious trumpeter from New York City, believes that financial losses pale into insignificance compared to psychological blow the pandemic has dealt to musicians.
Lost the jazz standard. The famous Birdland is right on the fence, but they're trying to hold on, because those rents are high, especially depending on the location. And, like Birdland's right in the heart of Times Square. That's the theater district, and those rents are sky high, astronomical money. And when you're no longer producing shows for people to come and see, that money is gone. So, I don't feel very optimistic about things right now, in general. I do feel worried. I don't know what the future has in store for us. I do believe it's going to get better, but the big question is when. Look at how many people that we've lost. I've had so many employers and friends dear to my heart that we've just lost. Actors, actresses, people that are somehow a part of your life, even if then you've never spoke to them ever. You just hear about people dying.
The young Turkish vocalist Suidil spoke of the serious problems that musicians in Turkey are facing. None of them received any support, causing them major financial and emotional stress to the point that it has driven a few artists to commit acts of suicide. But despite the overwhelming psychological challenge she and her fellow countrymen are facing, she still believes that there is hope. And the warmth and love I've experienced from my Turkish musician friends is summed up in her beautiful outlook on life when she states, "The night will be followed by the dawn."
Sen gelmeden önce her şey manasızdı, acıtmazdı hiç.
We don't have any support from the government, unfortunately. We have to create our chances by ourselves. And in pandemics, it was really tough for the musicians. Really tough for the musicians. We heard like maybe 100 or maybe more musicians killed themselves because they couldn't survive. They were not playing any concerts and they were not, taking any money, and they couldn't make it. So it's a really sad story. We have to do something for the musicians in Turkey. Hope always will keep us alive. So I hug all of my musician friends through all over the world who's struggling in surviving. So as Quincy Jones says, keep on keeping on.
In India, the majority of musicians were likewise abandoned by the state. According to Manish Pingle, a classical guitarist from India, they have literally been through hell. He told us about a noteworthy movement they have at home where artists are helping each other. Now Manish says life is slowly starting to recover.
No financial support from government to any of the musicians before COVID and after COVID too. Musicians helping musicians, this was the thing which was the biggest highlight of this difficult time. They started a movement where they could donate some money to needy musicians. But again, the most difficult thing about it is it's very difficult to really find out who is in real need. Some senior musicians came together and they kind of found out a list of musicians which they thought need survival money, like a livelihood money. So they came together, they organized a few virtual concerts, they put a ticket, and whatever collection was there was going to the needy musician. I think the government has to be the patron of the classical art form. They have to be the patrons. My sister stays literally 2 minutes away from this place, and I saw her after 6 months. Sometimes I really feel that I've started hating this, seeing our close ones on screen. I just don't want to. I really don't want to keep my mobiles and my iPads and laptops aside and be in the nature with friends.
The musicians in Indonesia, particularly those of Bali, find themselves in a very tight situation. The resort that used to attract millions of tourists has become a place of desolation, leaving its musicians without a place to support themselves. This was related to us by Yuri Mahatma, a guitarist and director of the Ubud Village Jazz Festival.
Minus 18% of economy collapse. That's the worst in the country. Because as I said, it is kind of 80% of the province economy really depends on tourism. So now it's really very heavy, not only as a musician, but in all sectors of living. Now from music we can only expect like 1/10 or 10% than usual. And most of the friends, most of the musicians are of course shifting the job. They try to make money in whatever they can do. For example, I have a hobby, cooking. I love to cook. So I make some food and I sell it. Sell it with online and stuff like that. So yeah, whatever. We'll do whatever to survive. Yeah. The government wants to help, of course, but only those who are registered. I don't know what they mean of registered because we were never registered. So it's kind of a dilemma.
From the onset of this pandemic, many restrictive measures have been imposed on musicians by their governments, thus causing them to be unable to perform in their cities and even places abroad. So without these finances, they cannot earn the money to pay for sustenance and housing. Among those affected are Liz Barak, a guitarist from Israel.
Just wanna be free. I wanna live today. Don't think about tomorrow. Oh, yeah, me. I just wanna be free.
The entire music industry is completely non-existent here at the moment at all because of COVID. Again, I had calendar fully booked for gigs from here until the moon, and nothing. Again, I work as a primary school teacher now, which I think is insane. I didn't have to do jobs like that since I was my early 20s was the last time I had to do jobs like that. I don't remember Israel ever being in such a bad state as it is right now. No, but here, see, they closed everything. There hasn't been a concert since March. You heard me? Since March, we haven't had a single concert in the country. It's not allowed. They give fines to people performing in the streets. People, there are musicians going around the beach and promenades and stuff and performing, and there's police giving them fines.
You are 30, dude. Gig here, gig there. You haven't become a rock star. Isn't it time you found a paying job? An ordinary one, like everybody else, with a decent salary, vacations, and retreatment benefits. There is hardly a musician unfamiliar with advice this sort. Same old tune. It's time to grow up and give up your dream. At moments like this, few artists can avoid thinking of themselves as a burden. It's quite heartbreaking, but the truth of the matter is, it takes incredible courage to sacrifice a sense of security and confidence about the future for the sake of that which you love and which you believe. For the sake of freedom to be who you really are. This everyday choice every artist makes, and people must learn to respect it.
At the time of this interview, the Republic of South Africa is also under lockdown. Despite some minor support the musicians are getting, there is still such a wide gap between the rich and the poor, which is a historical aspect of its troubled internal national policy. Many musicians have been hostage to these age-old problems, so they find it difficult to create and to think about art. But there are exceptions. One is Mr. McCoy Mrubata. This outstanding African saxophonist has been as active as ever writing music, even through this pandemic.
It's very tough, because some musicians don't even have internet. So it's it's a tough times. People are losing cars, houses, not only musicians, people in general, So we are battling, in our country. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're trying hard to help, I must admit, because, you get these grants, where you get 350. I don't know what the equivalent of that in your currency, but 250 per month, let's say in dollars, I don't know, maybe it's $50, something like that. For musicians, we got it once, last year, I did get something, only once,
A radically different outlook has been offered by Nelson Faria, one of the most renowned guitarists of Brazil. He points out that now more than ever, many musicians have begun thinking of music as a business. He expects music to continue developing towards online concerts and online musical lessons. According to him, this may be one of the only positive things to come out of this pandemic, as it has encouraged the creation of new business models in the field of art and culture.
We didn't have really a shutdown. We have never did a really shutdown. We did partially. I lost some friends, actually. I lost some, like 3 or 4 friends, more close friends that have died because of the COVID. I prefer to focus on the new opportunities than in the losses. For example, online concerts or online lessons. This type of concert that you do online from your home or from a studio, that you can reach people from all over the world. Before the COVID, you could do this, of course. But I think now people are much more into this. I think music is a huge business. It's $1 billion business. There are so many people that make so much money with music in the world.
As to Asia, the territory least affected by the virus, the musicians there, subject to some limitations, are allowed to work and no massive support is needed. This is what we are told from one of Japan's most successful double bass players, Takashi Sagawa.
The town is not locked down, but government they announced I don't know how to translate it in English, but sort of like emergency situation. They don't want to pay for the for the musician and for rest of the people, like restaurants, clubs. Well, they pay a little bit, but it's not nothing. But still, compared to Europe or States, America, I think we in Tokyo we can still kind of manage to survive as musicians, because we can still get together to play with in some limitations here, but like still it's possible.
Daniel Cramer, a celebrated pianist and composer from Russia, told us that local musicians do not get any support and that current restrictions make it difficult for them to provide for themselves. He is convinced that it is a gross economic miscalculation leading to problems for the whole economy. And yet he holds that history has shown that Russians are very resilient and they are no strangers to such problems.
What our governments in different districts doing, I began to smile. For example, this limit for the concerts, making me smiling, because what the difference between 25% in the hall and 50% in the hall, especially if the metro station working by 100%. I don't know, am I right or no, but it seems to me that it was experiment. What the people will do if somebody will stop their life. And it was successful experiment. Mentally, for Russian people who had life at the beginning of 90s, and for Russian people who was born at 60s and 70s, it's very difficult to make us scared.
Now that we're approaching the end of our film, we would like to share with you a fragment from yet another interview. It comes from a country mostly untouched by the pandemic, with only 1,000 cases reported over its whole time frame. The place we are referring to is Taiwan. The Taiwanese saxophonist Minyan Si shared with us that in Taiwan, restrictions were lifted over 6 months ago, and that the country has continued leading a normal life. Sounds like a message from the future for all of us, a message that brings us hope.
There's no really quarantine in Taiwan. No lockdown. No. For example, if you compare to maybe Japan or like China, Southeast Asia, or even America, I think we are quite lucky. Yeah, there's a really lot of support from the government. So I would like to tell all the friends, musicians in the world, don't give up hope. Just try to stay well with yourself and then wear a mask. Yeah, of course. I mean, if you want to come to Taiwan, for sure. I mean, Taiwan is now like a heaven, like paradise, like place. Everything here is normal. We do concerts, we do festivals, do teaching, yeah, sessions. Everything's is the same. Yeah, I mean, if you want to come to visit, or have like a tour or something here, we're all welcome.
Disinfect your hands. Wear a mask. Observe a social distancing. Go outside as little as possible. Take your body temperature regularly.
This past 12 months proved to be the greatest trial of my life. Same as many of you, I was refusing to accept that this world has changed forever. I lost my work, which used to give me a reason to leave. I was left out in the cold by the government, I used to believe. Not surprised. I lost many friends and the woman I loved. I resolved to make this film at the time of utmost despair. It gave a meaning to my life. I met all these wonderful people from various corners of the world. I interviewed them and was able to share my fears and sorrows with them. None of them has given up the fight. It offered me a hope. This pandemic would end soon, but tomorrow it could be something else. We artists should learn to help each other and take responsibility for each other. The pandemic has made it clear that no one will take care of us but ourselves. We may find that to form trade unions and civil institutions is no less important than to do business and make your art sell. The 21st century artists must learn to win their rights, not just their bread. We must stop playing the invisibles before our governments. Each one of us should feel proud for our work, for art is a meaningful mission in the present-day world, a mission of value. Our art, talent and mental stage are what encourages people to become better and change their lives for good. That's why we were born. Musicians, poets, painters, dancers. I know not how the world will change, but we can make it through the hard times if we work out for each other. Never give up.
Music or culture is a very important part of our lives. What we think so. I am like self-employed musician, so I'm the guy who take the risk myself. And then the government just says to me, okay, it's your own fault.
No, like
self-employed. You choose to be
compared to maybe Japan or like China,
whatever else.
even America. I think we are
The Being Artist channel persists only humanitarian goals. I am going to continue posting materials here and raise problems common to all artists. We'll be presenting your personal stories which you decide to share with others. No matter how far you live and what your art is, you will always find here friends, ready to listen to you. Subscribe to this channel, follow us on Facebook and Telegram, and send your stories to us by email. The links are below. It's not a commercial project, so we need all the help you can provide. I appeal directly to the people sympathizing with artists. If you consider the project worthy of your support, there is a link of donations on Patreon in the description. Every cent will be spent wisely. I would like to give a special thanks to the filming crew, the actors, and a great friend of ours, Mr. Dave Richardson Jr., the big-hearted Patreon of this movie. Take care. All the best.